healing has been the most transformational journey of my life. And it's really helped me in all different kind of ways, whether that's performance wise or relationship wise or even with sleep. So it's been really fulfilling for me. And I think, it could, for people that want to do it, it could potentially be fulfilling for them too. And I think ultimately healing is a solo journey. I can't heal for you, just like you couldn't heal for me. But that being said, I think integration is a huge part of the psychedelic healing experience. Things will come up for you in a session, and it's up to you to work through them outside of that session with therapists and friends and family. So I think it was super transformational, instrumental for me to have all that support. And I think integration is ultimately the biggest part of the psychedelic experience.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. Today, I have Alex Abraham in the house. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm excited to talk today.
Amazing. Yes, likewise. And we're very excited to have you and share your story with us. And for the context, I'd like to say a few lines from your bio so that our listeners can connect with your background and, what brings you to this work. We can begin with that question afterwards.
Sure.
So you have spent years searching, exploring, and experiencing firsthand the therapeutic treatment options for healing from sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse. Psychedelics and integration therapy forever change your life. So this has become your mission, I believe, that you are educating the survivors and also out there spreading the message of the therapeutic and benefits of psychedelics. Thank you so much for today and being very open about sharing your journey. And so let's begin with your story and then we can take it from there.
Sure. So yeah, about 7, 8 years ago now, after a bike ride traveling abroad, I started having really bad pelvic floor problems. That's really not an area you generally want to have a ton of health problems. It was very tight, like almost like a clenched fist, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. I saw a bunch of doctors around the United States. I saw a bunch of talk therapists. I saw a bunch of pelvic floor physical therapists, which is really uncomfortable and was very difficult. I saw a ton of acupuncturists. And so after all that, I really had no idea what was going on. I was still having a ton of physical problems. I was frankly struggling with like erectile dysfunction and sort of a ton of issues that were really not very pleasant. And I really didn't know what to do with this. I was super desperate, and I kind of turned to psychedelics on almost like a lark. I had no idea why I was doing them or what the purpose was or what I was trying to gain from the experience. I just felt like I had some anxiety that I wanted to work through. And it became clear pretty quickly that unfortunately I'd been badly sexually abused as a kid by an authority figure. And that was sort of the driving force behind all my pelvic floor problems and all my physical issues. And until I sort of worked through that abuse, these issues pretty clearly were not going to resolve.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's one of those conversations that it's hard to navigate in a way because, also want to put out the trigger warning to our listeners, just in case, these are not easy experiences to be confronted with. And I'm sure you're sitting in front of us before us, living through this difficulty. Would you say that you didn't have any, did you have the memory of the abuse or you didn't?
No, I really had nothing. It never even occurred to me that could have happened. This was an authority figure that I kind of worked with when I was very young, 6, 7 years old for a while, and someone at a school I went to. So these things were not conscious to me at all. I hadn't thought about my childhood or my primary school years in a very long time, so it never really occurred to me. but it became pretty became clear pretty quickly once I started doing psychedelics that I had a whole sort of latent trauma that had been suppressed. And once that started coming up to the surface for me, there was a ton of anxiety, there was a lot of depression, a lot of sadness, and just a lot of negative emotions I'd sort of pushed down to try to, live a normal life.
Yeah. And would you say, I mean, how was this validated, or it's still very much you accessed it through the medicine work? Did you get to like able to validate this abuse?
I think so. I certainly believe so. There was a lot of physical sensations around it that came back. A lot of uh, memories that came back. I did go to the police. He admitted to driving me home. I don't know. There was. I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. So we'll see what happens with it. He is actually still at a school now. So we'll see what happens with my book and see what comes of it in the future.
Yeah, of course. I cannot imagine how difficult this could be when it's somebody, that's still in the environment, in your environment, let's say, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
it was very challenging. It's very weird. I think these things unfortunately happen. There's unfortunately all sorts of creepy people around the world in the US, and I do think a lot of them tend to target children. And so, it's very difficult and very sad, but I think through psychedelic medicine and other healing modalities, we can kind of, or I shouldn't say we, people that want to heal can do so. And that's what I really want to make my book about is how psychedelics and other therapeutic modalities can help people live better lives.
Yeah, totally. Um, this is, yeah. I mean, we now know that the medicines can also help us move through these traumas, right? The early traumas that is ingrained. And what I'm curious about is to maybe understand a bit more about when you first started uncovering and incorporating psychedelics in your healing. Did you have environmental support, like family, friends? Did you have that kind of support around you?
Yeah, absolutely. I found a shaman in Austin, Texas that was really helpful for me that I do the psychedelics with. She's been really transformational. I see her every week for sort of an energy work, breath work practice that has been really transformational for me as well. I was doing EMDR with a therapist, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, where they sort of do things with the buzzers, and it's almost like a little bit like hypnosis. And then I was in a group therapy practice with other men who unfortunately had been sexually abused. And so I saw a traditional talk therapist. I had friends come visit me. My mom was really helpful in sort of supporting me, both financially and emotionally. And so I sort of was able to find a whole group of people, a body worker that sort of helped me get more in touch with my body. So all these things together, I think have been really transformational and helpful for me in sort of moving through this dark period of my life.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That's really valuable that you mentioned this. And now you authored your book, Trauma and Ecstasy. And when is it coming out?
It's coming out on Tuesday, so
Oh,
December
wow.
3rd.
Okay, fantastic. Just in
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yes. So
Um, and will it be available everywhere, like Amazon and any?
it will be available on Amazon, on Audible if you're into audiobooks, and a bunch of
Mhm.
other platforms, and maybe even some bookstores. We'll see.
Okay. And are you talking extensively about the psychedelics as a healing medicines in your book, or is it more about focused on your trauma and healing?
I try to focus a lot on both. I think there was a lot to learn from my trauma, both for how people can avoid that sort of thing in the future, around adults and around adults in public schools and things like that. But also, I really wanted to focus on, my healing journey. And I think there's hopefully things that people can learn from it around psychedelics and, not taking things personally and kind of other different healing methods and modalities and ideas around consciousness and spirituality and things like that. So sort of a mix of different things.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for sharing the copy as well. I'm looking forward to diving into it, and probably maybe we can do a follow-up conversation in the future and see how that is going, especially for your followers and people that may found it very helpful, right? So this is like a feels like an ongoing journey into being wholeness, or some people may call it into awakening into your essence. So what an interesting way to begin your journey, which is not very ideal, but at the same time, the title suggests that you have found happiness despite the dark start, or the carried trauma.
Yeah, it's every day is a new journey. I don't feel like I'm ever finished. You know, nothing is ever finished, but I feel like you just keep going on new journeys all the time, new ways to grow and evolve. And sort of, I think that's maybe why we're here to, grow and evolve in different ways and enjoy and kind of do a variety of things around feeling leveling up kind of yourself and your consciousness.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to just come back to checking back to what you said earlier with the environment and the support that you had in your corner. I think, would you say that having that foundation, or having that type of allies around you, helped you and kind of informed the level of benefits? Or would you say it not that important because you were really
Absolutely.
committed to your healing anyway?
I was very committed, and I think ultimately healing is a solo journey. I can't heal for you, just like you couldn't heal for me. And as much as my mom like wanted to help me, I did these sessions on my own. I did the therapy on my own. But that being said, I think integration is a huge part of the psychedelic healing experience. Things will come up for you in a session, and it's up to you to work through them outside of that session with therapists and friends and family. So I think it's super transformational, instrumental for me to have all that support. And I think integration is ultimately the biggest part of the psychedelic experience. Integrating things that have come up, feelings that have come up, memories that have come up, and kind of putting them in their place so you can go on to live a better life in the future.
Yeah, I always thought the same, about, for example, when people come into the work initially, it's always good to ask the question if they have a supporting environment, if they have, people that they trust and they can be very open and comfortable and vulnerable with. I think that's kind of very critical in this work, just because, when things start to um, rattled, when things start to unpack, and you are in found yourself in very uncomfortable places, I think knowing that you can lean into your environment of support is, for me, is very important. And so when people come into it and they don't have any support, in fact, because of the landscape, because of the stigma still around these medicines, sometimes people do these on solo and have to hide it from their families. They cannot speak about it. They end up hiding it, going for it secretly, which you can imagine is not very helpful in the long term. So, what are your thoughts on that? I'm sure you meet people that will tell you that they will never be able to share it with any of their family members or friends.
Yeah, I initially didn't share my therapeutic journey with my family. It was only when I really started having a ton of problems that I sort of reached out to my mom, asking for help. So I was a little embarrassed and almost maybe even ashamed that I was like resorting to this work at such a young age. But I think over time I really was able to get their support, and I do think healing is mostly relational. It's with another person, it's with a small group. So whether that's family or not, and unfortunately, difficult family systems are kind of a hallmark of childhood trauma and childhood sexual abuse. I think having a good support network around you, whether that's family or not, is super critical for all kinds of healing, from any major trauma or any addiction or things like that. So I'm very skeptical of. I think in one sense it is very much a solo journey. Only I'm experiencing my emotions, my feelings, my thoughts, my sessions. But on the other hand, I think relationships are super important for all kind of healing. So it's sort of a mix of the two.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like there is no trauma. You talk about, sometimes we get inspired by the monks sitting on, temples and meditating all day, which is a great practice and an incredible, profound tradition. I remember in my early days when I was working with a medicine woman, she also said, it's easy to meditate on top of the, like in a place that there are no humans. Try and meditate in the chaos. For me, the healing work is a bit like that. Like you said, trauma is relational, so might as well do this work together with other people in a relational context. Bring in the family. I know it's hard. I'm not dismissing how challenging it can be, because some of the family dynamics are so dire that people cannot even talk to each other, right? So how do you bring it in together and bring all the family together into it? It's hard. So I get that. And yet the paradox is that we have to bring them in. We know the healing happens relationally. So then we need another nervous system in our field, or nervous systems per se. So one of the reasons that I love group work, for this exact reason. I love group works. And I think for me as well, most of my breakthroughs came from group settings, to be honest. Yes, you're right. The solo journey is about feeling the uncomfortable, building capacity to go through the storms of emotions, feel very dysregulated. It can be very dysregulating, right? It's like even at times, it feels like the rug is being pulled under your feet, and you just have to just breathe through it and continue building that capacity to keep going. But I'm guessing that if you have the supportive environment, that layer can help instead of, making it worse or making it more harder. So these were my thoughts initially as well. So thanks for validating that. And so how are you excited about your book? And do you have any social media outlets where you can share your message? How do you share your message with people?
So I'm on Instagram a little bit. I don't love Instagram, but I have a pretty small following. It's like 150 people, alex.l.abraham. But also I've been on podcasts like this one. I've sent a lot of cold emails to people in the psychedelic space, in the trauma space, in the memoir space. And so I've gotten a couple places where my book is being reviewed or has been reviewed. And I'm actively looking for different ways on Reddit, on Amazon ads, and different ways to try to share my message. So I think I'm trying to do a bunch of different things and seeing what sticks and seeing what I like and what fills me up. So yeah,
Mm.
I'm trying to do it all a little bit.
Yeah, it's a very much like a journey that's just begun. I'm guessing that it will probably flourish into a much bigger movement, because I have a feeling there's a lot of people out there who have similar experiences, and they're probably terrified to even talk about it if they have came to unpacking it, to realize it. Otherwise, like you said, it could be so disconnected, suppressed in the unconscious, that you don't even know until something kicks off, like you had experienced, right? How would you know? How would you even investigate such a thing unless something really kicks off and then starts to disrupt your life, I guess.
The one thing I would say is I do think this some of this stuff is relatively obvious when you look back at it. I think people who have been abused the way I was, they don't usually have a ton of friends and like a loving family and are thriving at work in their life. I think there's evidence of this stuff even before you're sort of consciously aware of it. Like I had some pretty bad anger issues. I did not have a ton of great relationships. I had a bunch of issues around sex. And so all that together was sort of, I think, have evidence of abuse before I sort of knew it consciously. So I don't think people are doing amazing and then suddenly they realize, they had some horrible trauma in their childhood. It usually is a more gradual process.
Yes, you're right. It's like the process of bringing it from the unconscious to conscious um, is where it's at, and that's where the incredible work needs to be undertaken. So Thanks for sharing your personal journey with us. Honestly, this is very important for us and our listeners because sometimes we get too caught up in the scientific and the research and the studies of psychedelics that we forget that these are for us to come back to alignment, to coherence, to find find our way back to whatever it is as a human that makes us human. And I'm sure you learned tons of lessons along the way. Is there anything specific that jumps out for you that you'd be so interested to share with us some of your learning?
Uh, I definitely think I would say that both healing is very hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I think it's also possible. And I didn't believe healing was really possible for me before psychedelics. And that's been one of the biggest changes because I think these tools are so powerful, they're so strong, and they can bring about so much change that I really do think they can help heal people in ways that no other modalities could match. And they've really changed my life. And I think they can have the potential to change many more lives in the years and decades to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really valuable. And what would you say that, what are the hard lessons you learned along the way? That would be very interesting.
Hard lessons. I would say that, healing is like anything else, it's never perfect or finished. I think I'm always going to have scars from my abuse forever. That doesn't mean I can't thrive or can't live a great life, but I think there will always be scars. And I think everybody goes in their own direction. So, there are ways I wish friends and family had changed along with me, but everybody's going to do their own thing, and so I can control me and my journey, and I can't really control anyone else's journey or try even want to try to do that. So, like some people are going to go on big growth journeys and some people are going to stay, I think, mostly where they are. And that's sort of up to them. So I think, when I was younger, I was always trying to control things or control people or tell people like you should do X or you should do Y. But everybody's going to do what they're going to do. And, I can talk about my journey. I can tell, impart lessons that I've learned. But ultimately, it's up to everyone else to do what they think is best for them.
Yeah. And it's the hardest thing to do, just to let people get on with what they need to do. It's very difficult.
Yeah, and some relationships will thrive and some will, come together differently and others will sort of fade away. And I think that's just part of life. And hopefully new connections can take some of their places. And it's sort of like an evolving journey. I don't think anybody quite really knows what all this is, this life, but I think we're gonna find out.
I think so, Alex. You reminded me of, if there were, let's say, layers to healing, I think the first layer is always like we discover something amazing and then we want to tell everyone. I'm sure our listeners resonate with this who had their psychedelic experiences. The first layer is like, the world needs to know this. The world must take sometimes we see these. There was a guy with a postcard, right? He was saying all politicians should drink ayahuasca, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like we want our families. I think the initial first hard lesson, the need for our families, like everybody to take medicine, which is not possible. It's not realistic. It's crazy insane, but it's inevitable because as humans, there is this part of us that want to share the thing that we experience. We want to share and we want to tell everyone to do the same. And it doesn't occur to us only at the later stage. Like, for example, for me, it came very late stage where I needed to just let it go and accept as this is how it is and this is what is going to happen. Let people just have their own timeline in how they want to come to healing, and they may not, and that's okay. The whole acceptance of maybe this is our need to control, right? It's the loosening of that, and then just allowing and accepting people just get on with their lives. It's got nothing to do with how they should do certain things, right? So there's a quote that you may like, actually, and it was the one for me. I had to put it on a post-it note as a reminder. It goes like this: the whole point of us doing the healing work or the transformational work that we do is actually simply to build enough capacity to be able to then witness our loved ones suffering.
Yeah, I think exactly right. There are always things I wish I could change as a part of me, but I think there's a bigger part of me now that realizes that it's up to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we grow in capacity. I feel like anyone who's in the healing space, I'm sure you guys can recognize this. It's almost like there will be a time that comes where we build enough capacity to then just witness the suffering. It's almost like there's a psychological separation that happens, that you're no longer so attached to trying to fix. And, it's like, sending someone you love like 10 different like links, positive, videos, lectures. You need to watch this. You need to hear this message when they can't hear the message. Or then comes back to like your control issues, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. What other lessons you've learned along the way? This is so incredibly valuable.
Other lessons I've learned, I would say, not taking things personally has been a real challenge for me. Even with my book, right? When like people don't answer my emails or they don't show interest, my immediate reaction is like to go into victim about it, or like, why are they not? Why don't they care about me? Or like, why do I not matter? Or something like that. But it's never personal, these things. They're probably just busy. Like they probably, or the topic doesn't resonate. It's not a big deal. It's not something that I need to be super worried about or concerned about or take offense to. So and I think that comes from a place of wanting validation, wanting to feel whole, wanting to feel like I matter. And ultimately, I had some tough childhood experiences where I felt like I didn't matter. And so, I think there's a part of me that like wants to try to make up for that with this book or with other things I might do as an adult, to try to feel like, I'm a big deal. But the reality is, at least for me, I'm very small, in the grand scheme of things. I'm a monkey orbiting a rock or whatever, so nothing I really do is going to matter that much in the long run. That's not to say not to do anything, but I think it's important not to. I think thinking about yourself less and taking yourself less seriously is actually a big key to fulfillment and contentment and happiness.
I love this. This is my favorite. I love this, Alex. You're touching on very simple, but the most difficult thing. These are the things that people spend their whole life and money and time to really get past and loosen those grips and really start to, hone into their own path and their own life and their own being here and finally reconnect with life. So those are the obstacles that stand in the way. Trying to fix and heal everybody, that's like huge, especially now social media. It's like this place that breeds, I'm sure you've seen it online. I'm not sure how much you spend time because of my work. I do. And every other post I see or the comments, I'm sometimes just looking at the comments just to see where we are as humanity, because the comments reveal so much about our collective psyche. And there isn't any day that I can get past the post or a commenting thread, people are continuing trying to fix and rescue each other or control and manipulate the situation. It's insane. And then the other thing, like you said, taking yourself less seriously. What would you say one more if you were to add one more to the mix?
Maybe just I guess journaling has been really key for me, and just finding ways that to get in touch with your emotions, whether that's journaling or saunaing or exercising, but some way you can sort of figure out, why am I feeling these emotions? Why am I thinking these thoughts? And sort of trying to see out of your traditional programming around mental health and sort of because I think you can kind of suck in loops of negative thoughts and feedback and ideas. So some ways to take yourself out of those loops. Because I think when you're a kid, you really don't think of these negative thoughts, right? But as an adult, they sort of get kind of ingrained by society and by your job or by your relationships and things that can kind of take you back into sort of that almost kid-like fascination with things and sort of that self-love. that a lot of children have is really important for me. And so that's why I played a lot of soccer. I play pickleball. I journal. I go in nature. I go to the sauna. And I try to do all sorts of things I really enjoy just for its own sake and things that can kind of help me get in touch with my younger self.
I love this reconnecting back to the emotions, of course, dropping into the body, because we live in the head, in the mind, right? So the life
Exactly.
happens in the head. So this is very again valuable. So with all this dissociation, do you think, would you say that one of the key benefits of working with the medicines is the fact that they can help us to drop into our bodies and reconnect with the this because one of the reasons probably we dissociate and disconnect is it's uncomfortable to be with ourselves, right? So the distraction is easy, especially now in this consumerism space in the world that we're living in. It's so easy to just distract any moment of the day. It's so easy not to be with ourselves. Would you say one of the key healing benefits, which has been for me, and I'm sure our listeners can resonate as well, to be with yourself, was that really difficult for you?
Absolutely. It's still difficult. I'm still having a lot of body disconnection issues around my abuse. I think that's going to be the last thing for me to come back because ultimately the most fundamental thing was the feeling of violation. Fortunately, I was badly violated. And I think that will be the last to sort of work itself out. But I definitely think psychedelics can really help you get back into your body in a way that very other few tools can. I've tried yoga, I tried breath work. I've tried dancing, and those all help a little bit. But I think really, MDMA assisted psychotherapy, psilocybin, and ayahuasca can really help you do that in ways that I'm not aware of any other tools. So I think, especially for people who've been violated or abused, in that way, I think they can be really transformational.
Yeah, totally. And what about, would you say that if we are going to work with this level of trauma, I'm guessing the role of the facilitator is huge. Um,
Absolutely. I
mhm.
worked with a facilitator. I've worked with three different facilitators over my time with psychedelics, and two of them went quite well and were really experienced, and one of them was not. And the one that wasn't, went horribly wrong, frankly. I got very scared. She didn't seem to quite know what to do. We weren't on the same page. It felt like she wasn't really couldn't really hear me sometimes, like what I was trying to convey. And so it was a very disastrous experience. So I definitely think anyone that's looking to do this work, especially if you've never done it before, having a facilitator is super important that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, that has done this before, has some sort of experience, that has done their own work, that has knows what can go wrong with this stuff. So that way, I think you're much more likely to have a positive experience than if you work with someone who doesn't do those things.
Yeah, yeah. Super insightful this is. And this has always been one of the conversations that I'm having all the time. I think the role of the facilitator or the person that's guiding the session is so key. This is a very specific area of work and it cannot be taken lightly because you don't know what's going to come up, right? You don't know where you will be launched into. And if it's, if the person is not experienced, at least they don't have the field experience of holding such unpacking or unfolding. It's not going to go down well for sure. And this speaks to the risk harm reduction and the integrity of holding space for healing, and also avoiding some of those risks. And now currently, I'm also seeing a lot of posts about retraumatization, just because I'm guessing it comes back down to a society that don't understand how to be with this type of experiences because it's been pushed down and shut off for so long. Like, imagine with antipsychotic and antidepressants, we've always been able to suppress everything, right? So now something like that comes out in the open. What do you do with it if you're not experienced to hold it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think that's unfortunately something people are learning the hard way right now. And I definitely think once these tools are legalized for therapeutic use, which I think will happen at some point, integration centers will be built out, and people will be able to sort of have a more of a container to work through these with these medicines in a therapeutic way.
Yeah. As a last piece, I can continually hear you. I can hear in your voice how much it's important for you to talk about the integration processes. I just want to say one thing about earlier. I want to come back to it. You said about before the psychedelic work, you did yoga, you did other modalities with maybe like a minimum success. And then after this is so incredibly important for us to maybe talk about because I also found the same. For example, before when I was doing yoga practices, it was more like disconnected, just motions of doing the poses, and it was just it's very automatic in terms of it was just like doing in the doing of it. And then after working with the medicines, I think that changed something where doing yoga is almost feels like a psychedelic journey, right? Do you agree?
I am actually not a huge yoga person, but I've definitely been able to get there with breath work
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes being in nature. So I definitely think everybody's that wants to heal. It's up to them to find their own modalities that can sort of help them tap into that space in themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, initially, imagine like we could do all of these practices from a dissociated place, right? We could do all the, stretching, yoga, everything that, we love, like somatic experience, somatic practices, body work. Meditation can be done from a disconnected, dissociated place. People can sit disconnectedly for hours thinking this is a great practice that they are honing into. But then once you really found that you can drop into your body, once you know how to drop into your body, which kind of where the psychedelics come in, because they can do that immediately for you. And in the beginning it can feel terrifying, right? The initial dropping into the body can be absolutely terrifying, and a lot of people don't know what that feels like. So it can create or induce or maybe even bring up a lot of fear and anxiety around that. But then as what I found that as we continue to learn how to be with ourselves and in the body, um, then the practices change. How we practice changes, like these things. With microdosing especially, have you heard of like microdosing and incorporating it with your gym sessions, with your stretching, with your yoga, because it just changes the entire experience.
Yeah, I try to do it on therapy days when I'm going to see my shaman or doing other therapeutic work because I think it helps me tap into myself more and feel in a more comfortable place.
Yeah, totally. It makes the unconscious material more available.
Exactly.
Yeah, it kind of like lowers down the guards, I guess. Hmm. Yeah, I was going to say the last piece of this conversation, I'd love to hear more about your integration, your passion about integration. I think that's definitely one of the key aspects as well.
Sure. Yeah. So today I'm seeing an intimacy coach because I still struggle with that. I'm seeing a shaman still regularly. I'm still doing psychedelics, infrequently every couple months. And then, I try to get 8 hours of sleep, try to eat well, try to exercise. I try to be in nature. I try to journal, try to see friends and talk to friends. So all that together, I think, helps build an integration practice.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for your vulnerability and your openness, and yeah, coming here to share with us, with our community. Before we let you go, where can they find you? I know you shared your Instagram. Is there any way they can find you? Is there a website? What can you share with
Yeah.
us?
Traumaandecstasy.com is my website, and you can reach me at alex@traumaandecstasy.com. So I check email every day, and I'm happy to answer any questions or thoughts or feedback people have about my book, my journey, or psychedelics more broadly.
Amazing. And what would you like to leave our listeners with last, words, maybe?
I would say healing has been the most transformational journey in my life, and it's really helped me in all different kind of ways, whether that's performance wise or relationship wise or sleep, even with sleep. So it's been really fulfilling for me, and I think it could for people that want to do it, it could potentially be fulfilling for them too.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex, again. And we would be able to have your bio and your links and your contact social handles in the show notes. And also would be interested to follow your journey, what comes and what unfolds from here for you.
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. If you found this valuable, any insights that, any or the revelations you had during this conversation, please do comment, share your thoughts, share your experiences, ask a question, don't be shy. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.